When you hear the name MKUltra, you probably think of secret laboratories, shadowy CIA operations, LSD experiments, and wild conspiracy theories. But the truth is far more complex, far more calculated, and far more relevant today than most people realize. MKUltra wasn't just about mind control. It was the first major attempt to understand human behavior as a marketable resource, a blueprint for influencing, predicting, and ultimately controlling decisions, both individual and collective. And its legacy didn't die when the program officially ended. In fact, it lives in every corner of the modern attention economy. To understand MKUltra, you need to understand the world that created it. The 1950s were a time of intense global tension. The Korean War had just ended, and the Cold War between the United States and the Soviet Union was heating up. Fear wasn't just political, it was personal. American POs returned home claiming experiences that sounded like brainwashing. They praised ideologies they had previously opposed. Families were puzzled. Psychologists were alarmed. Washington was worried. Rumors circulated that the Soviets and the Chinese were experimenting with techniques that could rewire human minds: hypnosis, drugs, sensory deprivation, and psychological torture. Propaganda wasn't just information, it was a weapon as deadly as artillery. And the CIA, operating in this climate of fear, asked a chilling question: if the human mind can be broken, could it also be controlled? In 1953, under CIA Director Allen Dulles, MKUltra was formally authorized. On paper, it looked like a research initiative. In reality, it was a covert, multi-layered program, funded with secret budgets and minimal oversight. Over the next 20 years, MKUltra expanded into 149 officially documented sub-projects, though many more likely existed and were lost to history. Universities, hospitals, prisons, pharmaceutical companies, and even individual scientists became unwitting participants. The experiments were shocking, even by today's standards. LSD was administered without consent. Individuals were subjected to sensory deprivation, electroshock therapy, hypnosis, and a technique called psychic driving, repetitive audio messages intended to erase and rebuild personality. Students, prisoners, soldiers, and mental patients were used as test subjects. For the CIA, ethics weren't a question. Effectiveness was, and the scale was staggering. Funding flowed through dummy foundations, front organizations, and research grants, creating a shadow research economy. The agency didn't just want to understand behavior, they wanted to predict it, influence it, and weaponize it. Two of the most infamous MKUltra projects illustrate this chilling ambition. Project Midnight Climax, safe houses in San Francisco and New York, staffed by prostitutes who dosed unsuspecting clients with LSD, while CIA agents observed behind two-way mirrors. Subjects' reactions were recorded and analyzed. Subproject 68, led by psychiatrist Dr. Ewan Cameron in Montreal. This project used high-dose psychedelics, electroshock, and repetitive audio to attempt to erase and rebuild personalities. Patients often suffered long-term psychological damage. These experiments weren't chaotic, they were meticulously documented attempts to understand the boundaries of human behavior. And while they were brutal, they set a precedent. Human behavior could be studied, manipulated, and predicted, if you had the money and the tools. While MKUltra operated in the shadows, corporations were quietly asking the same questions but in the light. Advertising agencies on Madison Avenue were obsessed with influence. Behavioral psychology became a tool for marketing. Researchers wanted to know what drives purchase decisions, what creates loyalty, what triggers desire. Suddenly, two worlds, one covert, one commercial, were asking the same question: how do you control decisions? The CIA explored it through drugs, hypnosis, and psychological stress. Corporations explored it through media, messaging, and behavioral science. MKUltra revealed a powerful principle: behavior can be quantified, shaped, and leveraged for profit or power. And once that idea was proven in one domain, it inevitably spread. When the CIA shut MKUltra down in 1973 after Watergate, congressional investigations, and public scrutiny, the program officially ended. Files were burned, many records destroyed. But the knowledge didn't vanish. It migrated into universities, research labs, marketing departments, and eventually into Silicon Valley. By the late 20th century, behavioral psychology had merged with economics to create behavioral economics. Researchers like Daniel Kahneman and Amos Tversky showed that humans aren't rational agents, they are emotional, biased, and highly predictable. Their findings reshaped policy, finance, and corporate strategy. Governments learned to nudge behavior, companies learned to influence purchases, and the financial markets began to recognize the psychological dimension of human decision-making. The principles of MKUltra prediction, influence, manipulation found a new home in data, algorithms, and technology. Social media platforms didn't need to force behavior with LSD. They tracked attention, preferences, habits, and vulnerabilities voluntarily provided by billions of users. Algorithms learned what content triggered engagement, what ads drove desire, and how narratives could be shaped at scale. In essence, MK Ultra's legacy became algorithmic influence, where once the CIA controlled a handful of subjects in secret labs, today corporations, tech companies, political campaigns, and financial institutions influence populations of millions and sometimes billions every single day. Think about it. The world doesn't run purely on supply and demand anymore. It runs on attention, emotion, belief, and perception. When a viral narrative moves a stock price, that's influence economics. When targeted ads nudge people into buying or borrowing, that's influence economics. When algorithmic feeds shape political opinions or beliefs, that's influence economics. The tools have changed. The methods have evolved, but the principle is the same. Human behavior is the most valuable asset in the world. Governments now fear corporations controlling attention. Corporations fear algorithms controlling behavior, and individuals. Most have no idea what's shaping their decisions, beliefs, or desires. MK Ultra didn't create mind control in the way movies depict it, but it did create the incentive structure for mastering influence. It proved that human behavior could be studied, manipulated, and monetized. And even though the methods were eventually deemed too brutal or politically risky, the principles survived. Today, influence is subtle, algorithmic, and pervasive. From social media feeds to advertising campaigns, from financial markets to political messaging, the echoes of MK Ultra are everywhere. It was the first major experiment in understanding how humans can be guided, and its lessons are now embedded in every system built around attention, belief, and choice. The ultimate lesson: control human behavior and you control everything built on it. Money, markets, politics, culture, technology, they all flow from human choices. And the most powerful players in the world today are the ones who can shape those choices at scale. Quietly, invisibly, effectively. So next time you scroll through your feed, make a purchase, or follow a trend, remember, you are participating in a system built on decades of research into your behavior, some of it dark, some of it subtle, all of it profoundly influential. MK Ultra didn't end. It evolved and is still shaping the world you live in, one choice at a time, because in the modern economy, the mind is the ultimate market.